there, this is Tiff and welcome to the Tiffany Mika podcast. What we do here is we solve your problems so that you're out there working on achieving your big dreams and big goals. So when you listen to these episodes, if you can do me a favor, take a screenshot of the episode that you're actually listening to, share it on social media and share it with your friends with hashtag potential with Tiff, so that I can give you a shout out and really thank you for listening, because I'd really appreciate it. Hey there, this is Tiff from Tiffany Mika podcast, and welcome to this week's Lessons Learned. And as you know, Lessons Learned, what's it about? Well, it's all about evaluating and seeing what's happened throughout the week and seeing if there's any lessons that you've actually learned throughout the week. And I always share either something that I've noticed from a player or something that I've noticed from someone I was talking to or something that I've noticed about myself. And like I always say in these, it's always really important to look back at your previous week, see what worked, have a look what didn't work, what are the lessons that you learned. So it doesn't necessarily mean that negative things that happen, you can learn from the positive things that have happened as well. But it's really important, like I always say, is really important to look back at the week and to go through and see what's actually going on. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you one lesson learned for this week. And it was really about the reality about the body, okay? Because if we don't look after our bodies, what happens? Things can get out of control, can't they? We need to make sure that we're always healthy and fit and doing the right things by ourselves. And so I'm going to get started on this one. So that's our thing that we're looking at today, our lesson learned, is our reality about the body, okay? So it's getting close to half year, isn't it? Wow, can't believe that we're almost at the end of June. It's amazing. And what I had actually done, I had set a measurement to achieve for my body and weight for this end of June. And I haven't been too worried about my weight so much, and I tend not to worry about it too much because it tends to fluctuate a bit anyway. But I really want to make sure that the body measurements are right. And last week, it was really interesting because I've sort of been, I've got this particular measurement I want my body to be at, and an ideal weight that would be great. I'd like to be a little bit lighter than what I am and so on. But I was noticing last week that I was feeling heavier in my body, and I actually had put on a bit of extra body weight 2 years ago, and I felt like heavier. And then I thought, it's probably just because common talk. There's like over 40, it gets harder and so on, and your hormones, this and that, and everything changes and all of that kind of thing. And I was like, no, that can't be right. And so I had lost that extra body weight that I had. It was like I actually had put on an extra 10 kilos, and I actually felt like I was getting this little baby bump, like I was sort of a little bit pregnant, and I had this little bit of a putty belly. And I've never had that before in my life, so I didn't really appreciate it, especially being a sports person. So I never wanted to feel that way again. But what I actually noticed, and I've been probably noticing this over the last couple of months really, is I've been noticing, and especially the previous week, I'd noticed that I'd been eating a lot more at night. And what my usual regime is that on Wednesdays I tend to do a pretty much a full cleanse day, like a fasting day, and I don't actually not eat food. It's just that I keep a calorie intake really low, under like 600 calories throughout the day. So I space it out. So it's just a really light day. I am quite active throughout that day. I do gym training and I actually teach a lot of golf and so on that day. And it's quite easy to do that. I don't have to worry so much about food, but I make sure that I drink a lot of fluid as well, and drink a particular cleanse drink and so on. And it's not that it makes me full. It's just flushing out the body, just getting rid of the toxins in the body and so on. So it's nothing harsh in any which way. It's all about fasting, which if you've done listened to any episodes or podcasts from other people about fasting or intermittent fasting. It's incredibly important. So that's why I do that. And usually Thursdays is like I do like a 3/4 cleanse day and like fast day and so on. But what I was also noticing was that I was getting a bit slack. So why I would do these fasting days is that I knew that it could control my sugar cravings, because I have a sweet tooth, and I find that when I do those, it just resets me and I don't crave sweets as much, which is great, because I believe it takes about 24 hours for the sugar to leave your body. Don't quote me on that. It's just an episode that I heard through another podcast show, so from a doctor, but it's something around that. So that helps control the sugar cravings. Again, that's what I noted. That's why I did it and have been doing it for a number of years. But what I also was noticing, that I was eating a bit more at night and I felt a bit heavier in the body, and I would eat, I would eat a few extra sweets at night, and not out of control, but I'd just eat more. I'd sit in front of the telly and, I had a long day and just eat a bit more. And then I'd notice I was starting to eat a bit more on Sundays, and I was like, oh no, I'll be right. I'll just use my cleanse days, my fasting days, and that'll be okay. But I actually felt like it was starting to get a bit out of control, and it was quite interesting because, like I said, I felt heavier. And again, I'm not big on the scales thing, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to step on the scales because I'm going to see what's going on. And I noticed I was actually 3 to 4 kilos heavier than what I have been for the last few years. And I felt like, but I actually felt like I was. And I was a bit nervous about actually looking, because I knew what the reality was going to be, wasn't it? I was going to be heavier because I felt heavier. So I was like, okay, why has this occurred, Tiff? This was the question I looked at. I was like, why has this occurred? Well, I was getting a bit slack, and I was eating a bit extra food at night. I was eating extra sweets again on the weekends. So I was like, Sundays I can eat whatever I like. That was the deal that I made with myself. And then I was like, oh no, I can do Saturday nights and all day Sundays. I can eat whatever I like because, I'm pretty good through the week. And then I was like, oh no, well, I can do Friday night, Saturday night and Sundays. That's okay. And it was sort of like starting to get a bit more out of control. It's okay, I can have a few more. And I'm not talking I was eating like blocks of chocolate and, and bags of lollies or anything like that. But I was starting to eat lots more oats and honey. That's one of my favourites, and a lot more peanut butter. I tend not to eat peanut butter so much because it does upset my tummy a bit, but I was eating more peanut butter and honey and all of that kind of thing. And I went, you know what, Tiff? I've got to take control of this. And you know what that was? It was a decision. And that's a key word. I decided, okay? I decided to do something about it. So what I did last week, just to make it so much easier so I could feel that little bit lighter, I started to do a few extra cleanse days, and I just did. And what I meant by that, what I'm really meaning by that, is I was eating lighter. So I was drinking a lot more fluid, but I was just having a really light day of eating on the Monday, light day of eating on the Tuesday, did a full cleanse day on the Wednesday, had another full cleanse day on the Thursday, and I started to make sure I was eating smaller meals again, because I was starting to notice I was having big bowls of food, and again, eating quite a bit more than what I had normally done over the last few years. And it was interesting because I found this episode on this podcast show, and it was talking about binge eating. And I was like, oh, am I a binge eater? Like, I was really thinking about it. Do I binge eat? At nighttime, I tend to eat a lot more than normal. But I was like, no, I don't think I do binge eat, but I do eat a lot more. So I was interested to hear what he had to say about binge eating. Because the thing is it can happen to anyone, can't it? It can happen to anyone who can binge eat. It's like if you go through a diet or something like that, it's deprivation, and you shouldn't be depriving yourself. You should just be knowing how to manage yourself around food. And it doesn't matter whether you're an athlete or not. Everyone goes through this about how to manage themselves around food because, hey, we've got so many yummy foods around, haven't we? And if you like sweets, they can become addictive. If you like more salty foods, they can become addictive as well, right? It's just learning how to manage that. And I found it really fascinating around what this particular guy was talking about. And he was a psychologist, and he was talking about what he created because he had a big problem with binge eating. And he started to talk about creating rules for yourself. And I thought, yeah, well, that's right. That's what I did a few years ago. I created rules for myself. But what happened? What was I noticing over especially the last month more than anything, but it was sort of building up. I was aware of it, but I was getting slack. But I wasn't sticking to the rules that I set for myself. So I want you to be thinking about this, though. I don't want you to be thinking about depriving yourself. I don't deprive myself, and I never want you to think that you have to deprive yourself around food, because there's ways in which you can learn how to manage yourself around food if you do have a food issue. Okay, but we need food because we need food to fuel our bodies in order for us to perform the way we want in our sport, to perform the way that we want in our daily life. But it's all about knowing how to control yourself. So what were the rules? I went back and I went, okay, well, what was the big rule that I really had set for myself? Well, I only eat chocolate on Sundays. Well, that was a big rule that I had for myself before. And I was like, okay, all right, well, I can do that. I only eat chocolate on Sundays, or I only eat honey on Sundays, or I only eat bread on Sundays, whatever. And I thought, great, okay, so let's do that. So last week, every time I felt like, a couple of times throughout the week, just at night, I felt like, maybe I'd like to have a bit of honey. No, Tiff, remember, I'm only going to do this on Sundays. I'm only going to have some honey with bread on Sundays. Okay, that was it, right? Something really simple. But like I've said, I was getting slack on my rules. And Thursday and Friday nights, Saturday nights, and then Sundays, I was starting to get a bit lenient. And I was like, okay, I could justify it. Okay, I'm tired. I've been working hard. I can have that because I've done a half-day cleanse day or something like that. Right? I was talking myself into it. So what was starting to happen was I was feeling like sweeter things earlier in the week. Oh, it's okay. I can do that. Okay. Well, it's not okay, is it? Because what starts to happen is you create those habits, and then you get into the habit, and all of a sudden you're a couple of kilos heavier than what you wanted to be, or your body measurements are much higher than what you expected to be. And it's like, oh, wow, how'd that happen? Right? Well, we know how that happened. So we need to make sure we manage ourselves well. So I was like, okay, well, I'm only going to eat that on Sundays. I'm only going to have some honey and some wholemeal bread on Sundays. Perfect. Great. Let's do that. But tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eat my apple. And I'm actually just going to take one bite. And if I feel hungry, I'll go back and have another bite. So it's just creating rules around how to manage yourself, okay? So I'm not talking about dieting here. I'm talking about how to manage yourself around food, okay? How to manage myself around food. So what's the lesson learned here? Well, let's have a look. The lesson learned here, it's about being real and honest with yourself. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people say, oh, yeah, well, I've just big boned. I know here in Australia, I don't know, I think it's pretty much the same in America, possibly Canada, I'm not so sure, possibly in the UK. And I would think that these stats are increasing around the world anyway. But here in Australia, it's like 65% of adults are either overweight or obese, and people think that that's okay. Yet our country prides itself being on a sporting nation, yet 65% of adults are overweight or obese. What? That's crazy. And like 25% of kids are either overweight or obese. Crazy. It shouldn't be happening. Right? So it's being real and honest. So we've got to be real and we've got to be honest with ourselves. Then we've got to look at what's actually happening in the moment and at this moment. Like I said, I was like, I was eating some extra foods throughout the week that I'd normally would wait until the weekend and have, some sweet things and stuff like that. And again, I'm not about depriving, okay? I want to get that point out. You should be able to enjoy your life. But again, it's managing yourself. So, okay, I was like, all right, let's have a look at what's actually going on at the moment. Oh, I'm eating a bit of extra food. Okay. So, and then I was like, okay, well, what was the goal that I'd originally set? Well, the goal that I'd originally set was, because I'd take specific measurements like neck, chest, waist, hips, upper thigh, calves, upper arms, and so on. So I had a total body measurement that I was looking at of what I wanted to achieve. And then I had a weight measurement of what I wanted to achieve. And I was like, you know what? You haven't actually been focused on doing that at all especially the last 2 months, Tiff. Like, come on. Like, is this what you want? So once you actually go back and you go, okay, well, what was the goal that I'd originally set? Okay, that was the goal. And then I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do now to work towards that goal? And that's what you've got to ask yourself. What do you need to do now to work toward the goal? So I'm going to repeat those lessons again. What were the lessons learned here? 1, it's being real and honest with yourself. 2, it's looking at what is actually happening at the moment. 3, what was the goal that you had originally set? And 4, what do you need to do now to work towards your goal? So again, this doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means you know what? You got distracted, you got off track. Now it's time to get back on track, isn't it? Because it can be done. It's just learning lessons, isn't it? It's all what it's about, learning lessons. So I hope you enjoyed today's lessons learned. I'd love it if you could share with me what you like best about what you heard today. And I want you to dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams. Have an awesome day. Take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any questions about the frustrations that you're actually going through right now, come over and visit my site, Tiffany-Mika.com, and you will see on the home page I've set up Ask Tiff. Now what Ask Tiff is this is where you can ask me a question and I will record an episode for you on how to solve that frustration or those frustrations you're actually going through, so that we can get the problem solved for you so that you're actually out there achieving your big dreams and goals. So if you want me to mention your name in the episode, happy to do so. If you don't, I can keep it anonymous. It's fine by me. But make sure you go over and go to the Ask Tiff on the homepage of my website. If you've just got 30 seconds to spare, I'd also appreciate if you could leave a 5-star review wherever you hear these episodes. And remember, take a screenshot, add the hashtag potentialwithtiff so that I can give you a shout out for sharing these episodes on social media. I'd really appreciate it. And remember this, always, always, always dream big, believe in you, and go after your dreams.